Time for a first two review. I play a couple hours, so you don't have to. This time doing it on Code Vein, one of the free monthly PlayStation games. This one just has a PS4 version. And going into it, I had no idea what I was hopping into, but enjoyed the little theme music it had just hovering over the application. And I'll stand by that its waiting theme and its main theme are both pretty epic elements musically, however that wouldn't really be present in the entire game. So Code Vein, it's an RPG with kind of a close-range melee slashing style of combat. It's set in a world that centers around blood, essentially as like a currency, that characters through the world known as revenants, including yourself, must have in order to sustain themselves. And you're propped up as the main character as being special for being able to essentially conjure up these things when you touchy a tree. Yeah.
This is for you.
Eat your own bloodberries, baby.
Oh, no, I'm a strawberry.
The elements and setup of this world does sound like it has an interesting concept with kind of a cryptic, post-apocalyptic vibe that could be very interesting. However, the description and setup is so bland. You enter the game as if your memory was entirely wiped and you know nothing of yourself. And with all the characters you meet early on, there's nothing unique or distinct about them, and there seems to be really no depth to them, which is hilariously me-remmed by this being your introduction to the other core character of the game. Tatas, Christ, immediately. Yeah, all the characters are pretty hollow, but also pretty hot. And when these are the first two female characters you meet, I don't think they're searching for deep plotizement on their personalities. Not that these boobs are a bad presence, it just doesn't seem like they're going for much else.
Don't worry, it's okay. I don't remember either.
Them both waking up after just a nasty one-night stand. And I will say that the aesthetic of this game does have some great elements to it. The weapons look incredible, some of the enemies are pretty imposing and interesting, but it certainly seems a bit off in some ways too. And some of the big blunders actually come in the cutscenes, which have a fair amount of bugs that are rather distracting and pull you away from anything going on in the scenes, but the scenes are also pretty no-posy. The dialogue of characters in this game is really a mess. It's very expository, just directly stating kind of the fact of the world you're in. However, it's done with such tumu language as well as a very dramatic delivery. However, they also manage to seem emotionless, especially in facial expression, while doing this.
That could have gone better. I'll catch up with you in a bit. Don't worry about me. I'll be all right. Go on. You just focus on finding some blood beads, all right? That girl is waiting for you.
Ugh. God, this shit's cringy. Also, why did we select a voice if we're not ever speaking voice?
Just a pinch more.
Ugh. These elements of bland speech and an oscillation of exaggerated and dull delivery is just so strange. Ends up making the world really unbelievable and hard to be engaged in. And in some ways, it's so clear in what it's trying to guide you to and what's happening in the world, where it actually tells you the emotions that each individual person you're talking to is having. Like aggressive revenant, depressed revenant, parched revenant. And then in a lot of important ways, it completely fails to communicate properly. The tutorial is the perfect example of this. An information overload of statistics that you don't really know how they apply or change the game. I never really learned how to use the drain ability properly in my couple hours playing this, because I think I actually have to lock on to do that game function, and I ended up killing the enemy I was supposed to be testing on in the tutorial, never did the ability properly, and it just moved on. Combat train does not work. I think I have to kill him first. No? What? I don't think I did any of that right. And then when I look back at the documentation of how to do it, it seems like it's also missing that lock-on step, and I never figured that out. Then the combat itself is another thing I did not enjoy. Overall, I felt pretty restricted to just using the quick attack. The long attacks take a very long time and your movement is heavily restricted, while the enemies are fairly competent just about immediately, and they attack very quickly. And there's several long-winded attacks, abilities, and animations even for things like healing or restoring your ichor. Also, it's one of those games where you can get into this loop of just getting stunned and stunned and stunned by opponents, so you feel pretty helpless and can get screwed over. And although it's cool that you can switch in between playstyles, which are called like blood codes in this, early on it seems like the balancing between them is not very good. Like the ranged option, you just shoot out these little queefs that do fucking like nothing. And then the one that's a bit more magic oriented is also a little bit off, especially because a lot of times your character will direct your ability not where you're looking, but where the actual character is still kind of looking, which can also be off. Yeah. Bruh. So you probably want to be using the melee-centric fighter class where you can do like this. Oh shit, that's super fucking sick, okay. And additionally, the characters you're introduced to early on are also strange choices. You've got Oliver Collins, who is this random stranger who decides he wants to kind of partner up with you on this journey to get blood beads. And this person who is a stranger to you and supposedly like a beaten down slave getting forced to search for these things on a death search gives you this voice line.
We're gonna find a blood bead bonanza.
And he's just bizarrely bubbly following you around this entire time, which just takes you out of the world again, and you're like, what is this environment I'm in? Then the next stranger you meet is also happy-go-lucky and seems to conflict with everything that you're learning, while also just being annoying. He would absolutely hard carry through this boss fight though, and that seems like another problem too, is like that the partners are pretty damn powerful early on, so you can just feel even more insignificant as your companions can carry you and the normal enemies of the match can go twice as far with their attacks as you can. The game seems to force this narrative that you're all special and you're capable of doing all these things, but you don't actually feel powerful. Overall, I think their execution of trying to set up the world and explain it just was not good, and there were so many aspects that clashed against each other, and the combat was kind of the same thing. You're kind of forced into fighting in close scenarios where you have long-winded, clunky animations, whereas the enemies do not. And kind of the power fantasy that you want to create to make things compelling for the player is out of balance. With expertise, this game probably is going to feel a bit more smooth and interesting. However, I feel like the overall structure of the start does not lead me to thinking it's going to be anything special. RPG lovers willing to put in some man hours to really acclimate into this if you think it looks incredible. Sure, it might be worth a shot, but I was not impressed in my early playing, and it doesn't seem like something you can jump into immediately and fall in love. For a blood-centered slasher with boobs, I mean, I was really better off rewatching every Daily Do through just about all of that. With a little bit of frustration and annoyance there too. Not really for me, maybe for you. That's my first 2 review. Alright, getting big value out of this game right now. It's good for me. Is it good for you?